Call the meeting to order of the January meeting of the Public Safety of Rutherford County Commission. Good to see each and every one of you here. This is the first one for 2021. Before we begin, we have a little bit of housekeeping to take care of. This meeting of the Public Safety Committee is being conducted electronically pursuant to Governor Bill Lee's Executive Order 16. I would ask for a motion that conducting the meeting electronically is necessary to protect the public health, safety, and welfare in light of the coronavirus. Do I have a motion to this?
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Rather makes the motion, seconded by Commissioner Serino. Call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Gorley,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner Serino,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes. Thank you, gentlemen. We'll move into our business for this evening, and I'll ask as we begin, we need approval of the minutes. Mr. Vice Chairman, you make that motion. Do we have a second to that? Have the second. Commissioner Phillips, please call the roll.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner Serino,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Gorley,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes. Our first item on the agenda here to discuss this evening deals with OSHA. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Commissioners, Madam Secretary, County Mayor. All right, first thing with the OSHA report we have for the month of December, you have a total of 12 incidences, and the total for the year to date is 159. OSHA log summary total recordables, 115. Restricted day claims is 66. Lost day claims is 27. Other recordables is 22. On the next page, you'll see on the job injury claims year to date, you will see for 2018, 261, 2019, 268, and 2020 is 159. On the job injury incurred dollars, these are the estimation of the incidences of what they estimate those accidents to cost. 2018, you have 573,000. 2019, you have 493,000. 2020, you have 814,000. And moving on to the next page, I don't think I missed one. Okay, moving on to the next page, cause of injuries. You'll see with the Board of Education, you have falls, slips, and trips, you had 5. County General, you had 1. Next, you'll see strain or injury by. Board of Education had 1, County had 1. Cut, puncture, or scrape, you had Board of Education 1, County General 1. The striking against or stepping on, you had 1 for the Board of Ed. Motor vehicle, you had 1 for the County General. Gives you a total of 8 for the Board of Education, 4 for the County General, 0 for the Highway Department. And in the County General, 2 the Sheriff's Department, 1 EMS, and 1 maintenance. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions on the report?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve.
Motion approved. Commissioner Gurley, do you have a second?
Second.
You have a second. Commissioner Rather, please call the roll.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Gorley,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Serino,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Y'all have a good night.
Thank you. Next, we have the Recovery Court report. Good evening.
I have my general report, and then I have a couple other things to go over. You want me to just handle them one at a time?
Okay, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll let you go ahead and give your report first,
Okay.
and then we'll handle, I think you got about 2 or 3 items, and we'll take those after your report.
All right. So for the month of December 2020, we had 9 new participants join our folds. We had 7 people graduate. We have moved to a mostly virtual format so that clients are not coming in groups, but instead are attending them via Teams online. They are coming in for one-on-one appointments with their therapist and case management. And we also had another new baby born last week, so that's 4 since December 1st that have been born drug-free, and we're really proud of that. So that would be the highlights of my report. There's a lot more information involved in there. We also started the AverHealth drug screening process in January, and it is going very well.
Any questions on the report, Recovery Court?
Motion to approve the report.
Have the motion to approve by Commissioner P. Second. Commissioner Gammon, call the roll.
Mr. Sereno,
Yes.
Mr. Rather, Mr. Gammon,
Yes.
Mr. Gorley,
Yes.
Commissioner P.,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips.
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes. And I believe the next thing you have is the DUI treatment court,
Yes.
a grant?
So last year, the commission approved us to apply for a BJA grant that would allow us to expand our DUI court. We were not granted that, but they did give us a lot of feedback on that grant, and it is time to reapply for that. So what I'm asking for from the commission is the permission to apply for the grant. It's a $500,000 grant with a 25% match from the county, and it is a 48-month grant. We would like to utilize this to get 2 positions, a LADAC, which is a licensed alcohol and drug treatment provider, and a case manager, so that we could expand on our DUI court programming. Currently, we are almost at capacity for that, and we'll have to have a wait list, and this would enable us to not have to activate a wait list, and also perhaps have afternoon or evening classes. So that's what we would like to utilize that for. And the majority of that grant is already written. They just asked for some further information from last year, so it wouldn't be that hard to fix.
Mr. Chairman, the $500,000 or $500,000, it's a 4-year grant, so that's spread over 4 years. And also the $125,000 matching would also be spread over a 4-year budget period. Is that correct?
That is my understanding, yes.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Commissioner P.
a question for her. Are any office space or anything like that or in-kind allowed for this grant, or we just got to come up with $125,000?
There is an in-kind match, but when I sat down with Ms. Reba in finance and went over what the needs were, we could definitely do an in-kind, but because we already have the office space, the bigger needs so that we could provide this service would be the 2 staff and then the technological support for those 2 staff, which would be computer systems, phone systems, and things of that nature.
So how much would this office space and whatever else we could provide offset that $125,000?
I would have to speak to Ms. Reba about that. She told me that I would probably need to ask for the match, not the in-kind, based upon what our needs were when I met with her on Thursday.
Okay. If this makes it to budget, please have that information for me.
Absolutely. And I do have a working budget on it, and we'll have the full budget in the next week or so, I think, from Reba.
If we applied for it and the grant were approved, when would it start?
The start of this grant would be October 1st. It's a federal grant, so they run off the federal fiscal year beginning October 1st to September 30th. And the application date is March 3rd, so that's why I'm asking you kind of in a hurry. It just got posted, and it moves quick.
Chairman, I move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion made to approve to apply for this grant. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have the second. Commissioner Sereno. Any further discussion? Commissioner Rather?
I don't think I was on. I'll always approve of applying for grants. However, just kind of some concerns is it states here that there may be multiple income opportunities that make these positions permanent. So right now, are you planning on these positions being temporary? That's my first question, because if this goes on, are we going to get grants beyond the 5 years or whatever? How are we going to pay for that? The other question is, if there are other agencies associated with what you do that may have a need for a case manager or whatever, is it possible that that position could serve both entities?
So to answer your first question, one of the concerns listed from the denial last year was sustainability. So when we met, I met with a group of people on Wednesday, a group of people Thursday, and a group of people today to discuss, and we discussed several ways to sustain those positions, one of which is offering DUI school at our office, and instead of offering it for free, as we had previously sort of discussed as a team, charging for that service. And that would make it, that would offset quite a bit of the cost. There was also a discussion with the DUI treatment team in regards to the clientele that we take and the program fees that they pay to make it more sustainable financially for the county. So there's different avenues that we're running numbers on to make sure that we have that in place. Secondary to that, the way that the BJA grants and the SAMHSA grants run, you have to do an amount of time spent with each division. So for instance, if this grant is awarded, it's for DUI expansion. So any case manager or counselor that is under that grant would have to serve just that population. However, the way that we are set up, a lot of the county positions, we have them sort of filling in for each other. So when census moves, case management moves. For instance, right now, because DUI is so full and our DUI case manager is expecting, I have one of my mental health court case managers sort of filling in, and one of my veterans court case managers sort of picking up some, so that everybody is covered during the time where people are going to be out. So we sort of just move around as the need and as the census goes otherwise. Did that answer that correctly, or like as you needed?
I believe it did.
Okay.
Okay. All right, please call the roll.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Gorley?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. All right, you have another wishing to apply for another grant. I wish you explained that one.
Okay, so annually, the Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services provides us with some grant funding. It does not have a match to it, and I believe that you may have it on your screen of specifics on who it covers, but I'll kind of go over it with you. There are 3 different monetary amounts that are given. One is for recovery court adult programs, and that's in the amount of $107,500. There's a adult mental health court program one that's $30,000, and an adult veterans court one that's $70,000, and that partially funds 5 different salaries in our office. So this would be just to go ahead and apply for that again this year in hopes that the state would continue the financial support on those positions.
Okay, and this has what, a 25%?
No, this one is 100% funded. It
100%
doesn't have
funded.
any pay-in from the county.
Okay, okay. Any
Motion to
questions?
approve, Mr. Chairman.
Motion been made to approve. Commissioner Pete, have a second?
I'll second.
Second, Commissioner Gurley. Call the roll.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Gorley,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes. Okay,
I have one more thing.
all right.
All right, last but not least, I would like to ask the Public Safety Commissioners, we have an anonymous donor who wants to donate $3,000 to our foundation. And the only request that the private donor has made is that he would like some of the treatment rooms, the places that we have our classes, to have a plaque on them in dedication of some of the former staff members. It would be money from that donation utilized to buy the plaques. It would have no county cost, but because it's going in a county building, I need permission in order to do that so that I can accept these grant funding. Specifically, they're wanting Judge Bragg and Mary Schneider's name on some of the treatment rooms.
Yeah, I think this right here would more so go to property management.
I was told to bring it here first and then take it to property management.
That's
Yes.
fine. I
Okay.
think what we'd have here is just probably a mutual agreement to send it on to property management. Okay, we have the second. And if it's just in agreement with everyone, rather than go through the roll call on that, we just have mutual agreement that we'll just send that on to property management, if that's okay. Okay?
That's all of my stuff.
All right,
Thank
thank you. Did it totally painless. All right, probation report. Good evening.
Hey there. So we'll go over our December 2020 report for our department. Our total revenue, or our total expenditures for the month of December was $116,003.12. The total revenue collected by the circuit and general sessions courts combined was $6,068.12. For a total revenue of $19,612.72, and subtracting the actual expenditures for the month left a difference of $96,390.50. The total amount of money that was turned over to the clerk's office on payment agreements equaled $9,731. The amount of money owed in probation fees, those that failed to enter in a payment agreement for the month of December, was $3,490. For the fiscal year so far, the total amount in probation fees that's been turned over to the clerk's office to collect is $74,473.75. The total loss, the amount of money of those that did not enter a payment agreement with the clerk's office for the fiscal year thus far, total $64,692.75. And that would be my report.
Any questions on this report?
Move to approve.
Motion made to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have the second. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Gorley,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes. Thank you. Correctional Work Center report.
Hello, Superintendent. Thank you.
Packet should include our presentation for the month. It'll start off with our monthly board meeting minutes. Next in that report will be our work release program statistics, which you can see is still going pretty well. We went and toured a new facility today that we're thinking about putting inmates to work in. Next would be our yearly activity report. Our population's creeping back up there, not as fast as we'd like, but we'll get there eventually, as long as we got enough to go send out to work. And then our monthly worker report for December of 2020 with a total combined savings using inmate labor, $58,528. That is our report.
Okay, any questions on the report? Commissioner Rather.
I think it's worth noting in the minutes of your meeting, Detention Officer Robert Catron
Yes, sir.
saved somebody's life because of the training that's offered by his department saved somebody's life. I think it's worth mentioning because I've been trained on CPR and I've used it, and I've been very successful in the 3 or 4 times I've used it, but I still knew how to use it. So I think it's worth noting that that's incredible.
Robert Catron's been with us, I don't know, Captain, how long? So several years, and he's just one of those standout employees. He's never missed a day, never called in sick, and just on top of everything, he's just a great employee. But yes, recently he noticed that one of his neighbors, and this was off duty, one of his neighbors had collapsed and wasn't breathing, so he performed CPR and kept him alive until EMS got there. So, and then went back and checked on him the day after. So, if it weren't for Robert being there, he probably would have passed away.
Motion to approve.
Motion been made to approve the report. Do I have a second? Have the second. Any further discussion? Call the roll.
Commissioner Gorley?
Yes.
Mr. P?
Yes.
Mr. Chirino?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Gammon?
Yes.
Mr. Rather?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. Is that it? All right. Thank you, sir. Juvenile detention report.
Good evening. In front of you, you have our monthly reports for December. And we still have 2 counties that we are waiting for checks from. I don't expect that to be a problem. They'll get here before the next public safety meeting. Beyond that, I'll happily answer any other questions that you might have regarding any of the pages in front of you.
Are there questions on this report?
Just clarification, the population average appears to be on a little bit of a downward trend a little bit. Is that because of the virus, do you think?
Yes, and we've actually, it's It's worked to our advantage, actually, because we've been having some issues with staffing as well because of some of those same reasons. So if it had to be down, that's when I would want it to be down, is when we were working with our staffing. But yes, that's quite a bit of the issue.
Juveniles from other counties, about the same thing? Is it down
Yes.
slightly as well?
Yes.
Thank you. Move to approve the report, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
I have the second. I believe the mayor has something to say.
Ms. Duke, we recently signed a contract. What county was that?
White County.
White County. Is everything working out well?
Yes, I let them know that successfully passed through and that we were available to accept their kids whenever they needed. We were going to be a secondary location for them. Their main facility that they used was also having some issues with COVID, and they weren't always able to get their kids in there. So he knows that he can give us a call when needed.
Okay. Everything in your building good? Washer and dryers, et cetera? Everything?
We had the dryer technician out today to take a look at one of our dryers, but we're in good shape for now.
Okay. Well, just let us know so we can get property management to look at that, and that'll be Thursday night. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion, questions? Call the roll.
Mr. Rather,
Yes.
Mr. Gammon,
Yes.
Mr. Chirino,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips, Commissioner P,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes. Thank you. Pause.
Good evening. You have your December report in front of you. We had 351 animals come into the shelter. You can see down at the bottom, we had a live release rate for our dogs of 94.3%. Our cats were 98%. There's a typo there for overall. That should be 96.7%. We had 149 animals that came through our free public surgery programs, and 26 cats were released through the trap neuter release program. For the month, we had 1,626 people come into the shelter, 1,846 calls and voicemails. Our officers completed 1,510 calls, and they traveled 11,118 miles. Fiscal year to date, our live release rate is 92.9%. We've handled 9,745 calls, traveling 74,089 miles. The bite report, bite and exposure report that you have, you can see that we had 20 bites reported during the month of December. None of those were tested. We had 10 other exposures. One of those was sent for testing and it came back negative. Our report goes fiscal year. The bite and exposure, rabies exposure report, that goes calendar year. So this finishes out calendar year 2020 with 4 positive cases for our county last year. Just for your reference, the very last page is just the graph that I give you all that shows you the live release rate versus our euthanasia rate and our other outcomes. So you can visually see that versus just looking at a bunch of numbers. You can actually see it visually. And those are my reports, sir.
Okay. Any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the report.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve.
Mr. Gurley moves to approve. Do I have a second? Second. Commissioner Phillips, call the roll.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Mr. Chirino,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
All right, Sheriff's report. Let's do the report first, and then I think you've got about 3 budget amendments, haven't you?
Yes, sir. Really, the only thing y'all might find interesting about our report, well, is other than we're 19 down in detention still, we started a new class today with 8. So it's been like that all year. Y'all noticed that. We're 15, we go to 10, then we're back up to 19. It's just a every month thing with detention officers right now.
Commissioner Gammon?
What's the hourly rate of a detention officer starts?
25, something like that.
Okay.
And it depends, of course, if they have prior years, they would get the 5
Right.
years or 3 years, and it would
The
go
starting's
up.
around 16 or so, right?
34 a year.
Okay,
So
that'd be $16 an hour. Okay, so they're fixing to be right at minimum wage in, right?
passes, I guess it will.
Okay.
We do have a good-looking group, though. I mean, right now that's coming in as of this morning. Nobody walked out today, so.
Other questions? Have a motion to approve the report? Have the motion. Commissioner Gammon, have a second? Second. Commissioner Rather. Call the roll.
Commissioner Phillips? Yes. Commissioner Gorley?
Yes.
Commissioner Chirino?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather? Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. All right, I believe we have 3 budget amendments.
I'd like to, it's taken me 4 years, guys, but we've not done a budget amendment in 6 months. And you know that's other than grants and stuff, so I'm real proud I'm waiting 6 months to come and move money around.
Been saving up.
I'm saving up for y'all today. Hopefully it'll be May before we have to do this again. The first will be 54110, the sheriff or general fund. I need to move $25,000 into uniforms from communication equipment.
Looks like you've not spent a lot of money out of that communication equipment so far
We
this year.
have not, and that was with the radios, which we will correct that this year, us getting radios from EMA or through the radio grant and stuff, or whatever we were doing with, that's the reason why. We just didn't know that.
That was a concern. You're still going to have enough money in that line item to cover
Yes,
between now and the end of the year.
Whatever, car radios, really, if we had to replace one, we would use that money for car radios.
Move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made to approve. Have a second? Second. Commissioner Gammon, call the roll.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Chirino?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gorley?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes.
Now, the next will be from the jail budget, which is 54210. I need to increase transport of prisoners by $25,000. I'm taking that from food supplies and their communication equipment. The second is increasing our maintenance agreements, $3,006, and that's to provide maintenance for our chillers. And then the last one's custodial supplies, an amount of $20,000 from building improvements and food service equipment.
Questions?
Kind of surprised at the travel expenses moving prisoners. Looks like we'd be doing a lot less of that with the COVID situation and the judges curtailing some of the court actions.
These
So what's the story on that?
Out-of-state extraditions, and if the governor has the warrant signed, we have no choice but to go get them. We've spent, in the last 6 months, $25,000 just in airline tickets and bringing them back, and that was unexpected.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Commissioner P., do I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Phillips. Call the roll.
Commissioner Gorley,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner P.,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes. One more.
This third one will be out of our 122 drug fund. It's $38,000 taken out of restricted for public safety into our 25 in the maintenance repair of vehicles, veterinarian service, and other supplies and materials.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Motion approved.
Second.
Commissioner P. Has second. Commissioner Gurley. Call the roll.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather, Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner Gorley,
Yes.
Commissioner P.,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes. Thank you. Public Safety Director.
Thank you, Chairman.
Yes, sir.
In our reports, as you can see, it's been a busy December with the start of assisting COVID vaccination operation at Siegel High School for our 1A, 1A2 workers. We were able to secure that facility temporarily until we were able to obtain the State Farm vaccination site that we're currently at. I'd like to thank Director Spurlock, Principal Larry Creasy for the hospitality of the Siegel High School. It went flawlessly, and we appreciate everything that they've done for us. In fact, the principal said, here's our stuff, and whatever you need, we will get it. Also like to thank all the other entities, cities, and city entities such as Murfreesboro with their police department, fire department, the Smyrna Police and Fire, Laverne Police and Fire, all coming together to help us move public health from one facility to another to accommodate the amount of influx for vaccinations. Everybody came together. Also during this, we've also had several responses, which includes on Christmas Eve a possible water rescue / recovery that the fire department, EMS, emergency management, along with Murfreesboro Fire Department, had a report of a possible sighting of a body that went across the dam. That next day, we found that was unfounded. So those guys were out there working during the holidays in very cold weather and very cold, rapid water to make sure that that area was clear. We continue to distribute PPE across the county when needed, provided and sustained by TEMA, also our local government. We continue to monitor the COVID-19 pandemic, monitoring hospitals, infrastructures, and also PPE. I think that Chief Farley will note that we also had a fire fatality during this time, and everybody came together, worked together to try our best to provide that rescue. And then last but not least, in December the 25th, on Christmas Day, we all gathered at the EOC, all entities, due to a bombing that occurred in Nashville, which affected our 911 system throughout the Southeast. Unprecedented event. There are some after actions that will occur with AT&T when this is all said and done. However, our communities came together to determine how we're going to move within that time period where we lost our 911. That occurred approximately 11 a.m. that day. Everybody was getting ready for Christmas, celebrations, things like that, and majority of our upper staff met at the EOC to determine a path where we needed to go together, put public safety announcements out. And then approximately 6 p.m. that night, 911 was tied to other numbers so that 911 could be activated when someone called. It was several days until we got, I call it cool guy gadgets, that assist our dispatchers in the location of the callers and come up to a full system repair, and that took a couple of days, but we were able to tie 911 to those outer lines. Special thanks to Steve Smith, our emergency 911 director. Swift action, a lot of coordination, along with our emergency partners, and we were able to get that job done. And that's about all the report I have, and I'm open to any questions.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Fee.
The question for Chris, and this might be better aimed at the health department or maybe the mayor. How many citizens are we capable of vaccinating in a day's time right now? And actually, how many are we vaccinating a day right now?
I think that was probably left up to public health. However, we communicate every day concerning the process, resources needed. Anywhere from 700, 800, 900 people that we're capable of vaccinating a day. However, the times of vaccination, which is guided by the state, regulated by the state, has in the last week was only 4 hours of vaccination and a few hours of testing. This week it has changed to Monday, Wednesday, Friday vaccinations, and then all day, and then Tuesday and Thursdays they will do it from like 1 to 4 or so because they were involved in testing. So it's back and forth, back and forth. We've been on the phone, emails have been wrote, trying to compromise with the state to focus on vaccinations, which is guided through the state health department. Did that answer your question, sir?
Well, it sounds like we can do 700. Are we capable of doing more if the vaccinations were available?
Yes, sir. So as of governor's call today, those supplies are somewhat limited, and we are trying to find out what are we totally capable of producing weekly. I think that fluctuates, and on the shipments that we receive, that would be better answered by Interim Director LaShann Dixon, and she gets those reports every day, but we're guided by the state.
Thank you, Chris.
Commissioner P., I believe we'll get a full report at Health and Ed tomorrow evening from our public health director and bring us up to date. That's exactly where we are. So you can tune in tomorrow night at 5:30, and I believe that meeting will be Zoomed for the most part, but we'll get a complete update, if I'm not mistaken, Mayor Ketron, tomorrow night.
Thank you, Jeff.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes, I have a question, a comment. I received a call today from a representative from the Smyrna Senior Center, and one of the concerns is some of the more elderly people getting to the vaccination center. Now, I'm aware of like Mid-Cumberland Transport and so on, but like I said, this may not be the forum for it, but I just bring it up. Are there any known resources? I mean, it's one thing for an elderly person who's say 85 to get signed up for it, and then, but then getting them there and get the vaccination and so on. In many cases, these people do not drive, and so on. So, what is being looked at from terms of resources?
So myself and the Director of Public Health have been, there was some discussion. She's reaching out to some of the senior centers, working with our faith groups and other resources that can assist those elderly people to first register and get a time and date, and then secondly, how we're going to get them to the site itself. There's a lot of dynamic movement there. I do know that we've had those conversations with our local director and with the state, and that has been discussed even as late as 3 to 4 weeks ago on how what that looks like and how can we get that done. Let me go ahead and add that Director Dixon has done a phenomenal job, along with her staff, that are very, very efficient. That operation is very smooth over there at State Farm. They are, our public, I think, once you see the operation, it's very fluent, even though we do have a lot of patients to take care of. But to get back to your question, sir, that has been discussed. I think that's a public health discussion at your meeting, and I'm sure that they can answer that question.
I'm on that committee also, so I'll bring it up again tomorrow night. Thank you.
Sir.
Anything else?
Chairman. Yeah, the other night I watched TV Channel 3. I saw like you said, Miss Dixon, you make announcement that for the 75 and up, so need to register for appointment. Is that the same one?
Miss LaShan, she's a rock star, an absolute rock star. She is held in there day, night, weekends. We've had conversations as late as 9:30 at night, even on the weekends, and she's always available for us to discuss resources for the next week or during that time. She's been great.
Let me just echo that, Joe, that I think that'll be discussed tomorrow night. Your questions will be, at least I'm expecting them to. But the system that's in place, if you've not been to what's going on out at State Farm, the Sheriff Department is heavily involved, emergency management is heavily involved, and it is a fine-tuned clock. People that show up and are turned away, they don't get into the facility. So if your name's not on the list, you don't get in. I took my mother-in-law there 2 weeks ago, and we were in and out in less than an hour, and that includes the 15-minute park and make sure there's no side effects type of things, and it really went smoothly. And just to say that our health director has an interim on her name is even that much more impressive with what she's been able to do since we lost Miss Garrett a couple of months ago. And maybe there's a light at the end of that tunnel, and hopefully there won't be an interim in front of that name as we proceed on through this year. But I would agree with you, the Sheriff's Department, emergency management, just the way that thing is set up, it absolutely is very, very impressive. And I've heard horror stories with other places in the country, personally, that it's just not gone so well. That people in Alabama, as an example, people's name have been on the list, they showed up and they're out of vaccines. So ours has been run really well, and the people who are in charge of that, I think, can do more if it were made available to us. But that's another whole question. But thank you for bringing that up. I would agree with you from personal experience that it's been set up like clockwork. Matter of fact, when we got up to the front of the line, I said, I understand you've been giving injections to primary caregivers. And I said, I'm my mother-in-law's primary caregiver. Can I get one? And they said, nope. Good try, but no.
We've been very successful. And to kind of give you a little backstory, and I'll sum this up, is that on New Year's Day at 4 p.m., we had on a Zoom call all of our mayors, our city administrators, our fire chiefs, our EMS directors, everybody coming together to bring resources. So we had an all-star team that was set up on New Year's Day. And I'm very proud to say that I'm a Rutherford Countian, because everybody, we have signs from Smyrna and a UTV, that all-terrain vehicle there. We have streets and assistance from Murfreesboro Fire Department. We have EMS that's provided every day. We have police cars from Murfreesboro Fire Department and the Sheriff's Department. We have a mobile command from the Sheriff's Department. And it's neat. We've had churches that donates coffee every morning to the public health. We have restaurants that's donated food each day so that they don't have to leave the site. So I see our community coming together, but also salute all of our mayors, our city administrators, all coming together on New Year's Day to make sure that we have the resources there that are needed to make this function.
Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just kind of pile on with some kudos for LaShannon, and what a great job that she's actually doing and leading that operation out there. Last week I penned a letter and with in conjunction with all the city mayors, all 5 of us signed the letter going to the Department of Health, encouraging them, because the position has been posted for the position. As you know, everybody at the health department works for us except for that position, and that position as director works for the state. So this letter of encouragement we would like to retain her and let her be our permanent director went out last week. Also contacted Representative Brian Terry. Brian was recently elected as chairman in the State House as the chairman of the House Health Committee, which is an important position right now, and asked him if he would do the same thing with our legislative delegation, which I sent him a copy of my letter, and they want to do something very similar and give their support to LaShannon. So I think we're doing very well here in Rutherford County with all hands on deck and what we're doing. We just need the vaccine. Send us the vaccine, and I think we can get it into arms. And I think that's, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, is how many vaccines can we get into people's arms as quickly as possible. So we need more. We're getting Pfizer and Moderna at this point, and so our mayor's conference, I invited, Chris was there, we had Ashley was there from a marketing standpoint, LaShannon was there, Cody was there from an IT standpoint. We stand positioned in the event that it becomes bogged down at the state level because of their system is large. I think that we are in a position to step in and start handling it ourselves, kind of like Nashville, Knoxville, Memphis, and Hamilton County is doing. They handle their own instead of going through the state system. So we're not there yet, but we're prepared to do that. We have the technology and the staff that I think, if it becomes overburdened, we're prepared to step up and pick up those pieces. Thank you, Mr.
Chairman.
Commissioner P.
Well, the only thing I want to point out, and I think the mayor's, hit the nail on the head there when he said we need the vaccine. At 750 a day, if we vaccinated 365 days, that's only 273,750 people.
Takes 3 years.
Which is, in a year's time. We don't need to wait a year till we have this available to our people. So if there's anything we can do as a commission to help expedite getting these, I think it needs to be brought to us.
Anything else? If not, we need a motion to approve the report.
So moved.
Motion made to approve.
Second.
Second. Commissioner Sereno, call the roll.
Commissioner Gorley,
Yes.
Mr. Gammon,
Yes.
Mr. P,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips.
Yes.
Mr. Sereno,
Yes.
Mr. Rather,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes. Rick?
Last but not least, recently, our Assistant Director, Tim Hooker, has reviewed and revised our Basic Emergency Operations Plan, which is required by the state of Tennessee, or TEMA. TEMA has reviewed those revisions, and we bring it to you for approval process to adopt that revisions.
That operation plan is on your iPad there. Here's what it looks like if you print it out. Just a few pages. What, 180 some odd, 187 pages. Good reading tonight if you want to go home and read that. I started through it and I looked at my printer and I saw right quick it wasn't going to do it.
We can take out some trees.
But a lot of hard work went into that.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner P.
Yes, can you, and I've read through that, and it took weeks, and that's rereading, but can you highlight the changes and submit that to us, make it a little bit easier on the changes?
Yes, sir. I can go back, and Director Tim Hooker can highlight those and make that, I guess, pop out a little bit better so that you can see those changes.
Okay, and I don't have it in front of me, but one thing we discussed was that train derailment. Is that one of the issues that are addressed in these changes and updates?
Yes, sir. And basically, it just not necessarily, and we're also working on standard operating guidelines there at our emergency management. Not only what we are called on, but why we're called upon and make notifications. So if it's a train derailment, we may list that we need to be notified. But I think that our entities need to know why we need to be notified, whether it's TDEC, whether it's getting other state resources to make oversight of that spill. So not only will we have the why, when we are called out, but why we're called out. And that will be described in our SOG that we're working on correct now. That's never been done before. And I praise Tim Hooker for not only doing all this logistics and making sure everybody has PPE, but he finished that 100 and some odd page document, and now he's moving on to the SOG. And we're also looking at some other things that will help our community be more sound, training and things like that for our county employees.
All right, thank you, Chris.
Yes, sir.
What you have not only this document, the operation plan, there's also a letter that you'll see on your iPad there that is from the state that is recommending the approval of this, that the state has approved it and has given a recommendation for it. So I spoke with the director, rather than approving these separately, that we approve the letter of recommendation that the state's given it, that we go ahead and make that approval from there as one motion.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Yeah, the last time I think this was approved was about the time I started working, or right after I started working for the county, and that was 10 years ago or something like that. And it was reviewed about 5 years ago, about the time I retired. And I make the motion to approve.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Gurley. You have a second? Second. Commissioner Gammon. Further discussion? Call the roll.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Sereno?
Yes.
Mr. Gammon?
Yes.
Mr. Gurley?
Yes.
Mr. P?
No.
Mr. Rather?
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes.
To let you guys know, we have a severe thunderstorm approaching.
Yeah, I see. Thank you,
I was
sir.
just going to say that.
All right, I believe we have the ambulance.
Chairman, I brought the whole family, so I'm going to let Scotty come first. I think his will be the most brief, and then we'll let Denise Milne.
Mine's short and sweet. Basically, what I'm asking for, with all the CARES Act money and stuff, we were able to get 3 new ambulances. Also, in my regular budget for the year, I had money for ambulances in there. Well, I reckon everybody else got ambulances with the CARES Act money. So for my regular budget, the price of they ran out of chassis. So my price has gone up $350 per ambulance. So I have the money in my budget to take care of that, and that's what I'm asking for permission to use this money from the original bid price. They're honoring the bid price that is actually a 2-year-old price. We went from $125,851 to $126,201, and I do have the money to cover that, and I'd like permission to go ahead and do that.
How many total ambulances are you talking about now?
2, be getting 2.
2
more.
ambulances.
Move
I'm
to
good with
approve.
make a motion to approve that change.
Have the
I'll
motion.
second
Have
that.
second. Have second, Commissioner Phillips. Call the roll.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherino?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. Evening.
Good evening all. Just wanted to give a few highlights from the medical examiner's office over the last month or so. In December, we had 103 reported and investigated cases or deaths. 20 were sent for autopsy and 6 were sent for or were tox-only cases. In January to date, we have had 81 deaths reported and investigated by our staff. 29 have been sent for autopsy to date. The reason I bring these numbers as a highlight separate from Director Hudgens' report is because I just wanted to emphasize we do really have a heavy caseload in Rutherford County, which is expected since we are I believe the 4th largest county by population. So obviously, unfortunately, we're going to have a fairly high death total every month in comparison to the rest of the state. But I do have a lot of experience and knowledge of working closely with the majority of the counties in Tennessee. So in comparison, we do have a high caseload. And I just wanted to acknowledge and thank our EMS directors and our supervisor alternates for their hard work. They really have embraced the new training and the new protocols that our reporting and investigation has required of them. And they do this on top of all the other responsibilities and duties they have as an EMS supervisor. So they really do an incredible job for us here in Rutherford County. It is a hard task, as you can imagine, dealing with these deaths every month. So I just wanted to point out and thank the team that we have working for us. Talking about the training, we did have some continuing in-service ME training at the beginning of this month. I want to thank Detective Christine Keeves from Laverne PD for presenting the talk and class on forensic photography. And Detective Richard Brinkley from Rutherford County Sheriff's Office did assist in providing that presentation. Unfortunately, he got sick at the time of the class, so he wasn't able to join us, but I know he put in some hard work getting the presentation ready, along with Detective Keeves. We do have another class scheduled for our investigators at the beginning of February. We're going to have a guest speaker from Tennessee Donor Service talk to us about both tissue and organ donation. And then we'll have a second class that's on medical examiner photography that I will provide. Just the third thing I'd like to bring up today, we did receive 2 bids in response to the medical examiner office remodel RFP. So we were very grateful to receive those this time, and we are confident that we are going to be able to make a decision by the February 3rd purchasing meeting. So we are going forward with doing that remodel and build out for the medical examiner exam room. Do we have any questions on that brief report? Yes,
Mr. Gannon?
Do you have the number of total OD deaths that y'all were looking at?
For this month, I think Detective Hudgens, I sent it to him earlier. And I'm not sure I had it with me. My phone's over there. I apologize.
Well, I understand y'all are very covered up.
I'm sorry?
I understand you're very covered up on those.
Yes, unfortunately, I would say countrywide and statewide, we have seen about a 30% increase since the pandemic started. Unfortunately, we do have a high overdose caseload as it was, but we've been seeing that here in Rutherford County too, that it's consistent with the statewide numbers. Thank you. So in December we had, and obviously these numbers aren't confirmed, a lot of the autopsy reports are still pending at this time, which is typical. It takes about 6 to 12 weeks before an autopsy report is completed. So the December numbers, we had 12 overdoses. January to date we've had at least 10. So those numbers, like I said, will probably increase once we get the toxicology reports and the autopsy reports back. I am working on a more complete report so that we can look at our numbers for approximately about the last 10 years, which I hope to have ready for you probably in March. That will show you the trends of how we've been increasing, and we can start looking more closely at those numbers that have been affected by the pandemic this year.
And you've got somewhat of a task force, I think. Is that correct, with state and local investigators that are looking at those?
Yeah, well, both in law enforcement and at the health department as well, they are looking at those numbers quite closely, yes.
I think those are being setting aside, like you may have a murder, there could be a shooting or a stabbing or something. This is completely different. It's still a death investigation, but on that level.
Right, yes, Commissioner, thank you.
Other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I think he wanted me to go ahead and do the budget amendment. We're requesting to transfer $60,000 from our 911 paraprofessionals payroll line item into our convalescent part-time payroll line item. We've had several personnel out on COVID leave, and we've also had a big increase in transports in the convalescent. This is within our budget.
Motion to approve this budget change?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Okay, Commissioner Gurley.
Yes, is this going to make it necessary to come back and ask for additional funds in the emergency line item?
I'm hoping this will get us through the end of June, the end of the fiscal year.
The reason I'm asking that, if I have, the convalescent is okay, but if we are in any way endangering having sufficient funds for the remaining year in the emergency fund, then I would be against this.
We have several vacancies on the 911 side that we have not been able to fill, so we will be fine in the 133 paraprofessionals line item on the 911 side through the rest of the fiscal year.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the budget request.
Have a motion to approve.
Second.
Have a second. Call the roll.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Gorley?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherino?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I ask a question once before you leave? You mentioned 911 operators. We have openings and no applicants to fill those openings?
I believe Carl and I were just discussing that today, and I think we only have 2 applications at this time.
Are we looking for experience? Is that the reason we're not getting applicants, or
I believe so.
Are we looking to train folks?
I think he could answer that.
Just to be honest with you, Commissioner, Williamson County and Nashville is taking our paramedics. I've had one to turn in a notice today, and I'm expecting 2 more, to lose 2 more. It's going to leave me 11 or 12 openings. But it's who's paying the most, sir? About a $10,000 difference in Williamson County.
Is that the case on dispatch too, Carl?
I can find out for you, sir. I don't know the difference in the pay scale on the dispatch part, but I'll be glad to look into that.
Well, really the question I had is the same as Commissioner Phillips is, are you looking for experienced 911 operators on this opening that you've got?
I'm looking for quality, but I've got to have the applicants before I could decide. Honestly, I'd rather have somebody green and us teach them our way, but I have no applicants.
What's the starting pay on that?
We were just going over that today.
For a paramedic, is that what you're asking for starting
No,
pay?
for the 911 operator.
I know it's a pay grade 20. Sonia, do you know? I didn't bring the pay grade table. About 36,000.
Those jobs posted someplace? Are they posted? Say that again.
The part-time positions are posted, but the full-time aren't. Is that what you said?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Gurley?
Yeah, I think we may be confusing dispatch personnel with, when she says 911, you're referring to emergency paramedics primarily. Am I correct in that?
That's correct. And then I believe the dispatchers were brought up with Director Hudgens. So maybe I'm confused. Are you wanting the starting pay for a communications officer or a starting pay for a paramedic?
What I asked for was for a communications officer.
Okay.
And
that's what I don't
was
have.
my understanding is that was the opening.
Where I've got confused, we're not posting full-time jobs, we're just posting part-time jobs. Is that right, Sonia? Part-time.
Communication officer, correct? We do have full-time paramedic and EMT vacancies, and those are posted.
But not 911.
911 paramedics and EMTs, yes, sir. The communication officers are dispatchers.
understand.
Okay.
Do we have full-time positions?
I believe we have one full-time dispatch position open.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And that's the one that we can't fill, or is it the part-time positions we can't fill?
I'm not sure about communication officers. I do think that we have some applications out there for that position.
I think one thing that would clarify things, if you quit referring to the paramedic, the medical personnel as 911 people, and just refer to them as emergency paramedics, emergency medical technicians and so on, that's getting everyone confused. When you hear the term 911, you're thinking about communications. So I think we need to change that terminology. It'd make it a lot clearer for everybody.
I apologize. I always differentiate between the 911 trucks and the convalescents, so that was my fault.
But you're talking about the emergency, the ones who you send out for a wreck or an accident or something another. Those are the people, they're not 911 operators.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Communication, Joe, that's what we're talking about here, right? We're having trouble filling those positions, and are they full-time or are they part-time?
Right now we have, I don't know how many, we only have one part-time dispatcher. We have one full-time dispatch position open.
Okay.
And I don't know if we have interviewed for that position. I do know that the paramedics and EMTs, we have 12 or 13 vacancies. And that was what we were discussing earlier today, Director Hudgens and I. And I believe he said there were only 2 applications for the 12 or 13 vacancies. You're welcome.
Did that answer your question, sir? I'll try to clear it up if it hadn't.
I might be age-related, but I think it clears it up. Excuse me. What I heard you guys say is that we have openings in dispatching, and I was thinking that I heard 911 operators.
Right.
That we could not fill.
What we were referring to were the 911 trucks, the paramedics.
Okay, that clears it up. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
But dispatching, we're okay?
I'm comfortable where we're at. Okay, on the, for the month of December, the 911 trucks made 3,278 calls. We did 89 hospital transfers, making a total of 3,367 calls. Response times remained at 6.8. The number of deaths for the month was 103. We received $2,575 on those that we investigated. Sent 20 of them for an autopsy. We paid $39,200 for those. Year to date, we've done 178 autopsies, and we've paid out a total of $348,880. On collections, we have billed $1,872,382. Total collections at $601,758. Year to date, collections are at $4,262,695. Projected collections are at $8,525,389. And our collection rate is at 49%. Insurance write-offs were $637,000 $5,275, and other write-offs were at $366,716. And on the convalescent side, we did 409 calls. We had to decline 95 of them. Total billed was $363,720. Total collections are at $135,743. Year-to-date collections are at $660,656. Projected collections are at $1,321,312. Collection rates at 95%. Insurance write-offs were $220,442, and other write-offs at $850. And Mr. Chairman and committee members, we back in March, at the beginning of the COVID-19, back in at the beginning of it, Sumner County probably got hit the hardest at the very beginning, and we were able to go up and help them. We sent our ambulance bus out there, and Scotty was heavily involved in that, and a couple other ambulances. But anyway, the director, me and him were pretty close, and he came by to see me the other day and brought me this nice letter and gave challenge coins from their department to our medics who had participated in that. It was a very nice gesture that when he came by to see me. Keith, he had received a call from a patient, and they were very complimentary of the care and compassion that our paramedics had given this man, and I just wanted to recognize Joe Loftus and Christina Yavoni. He had emailed me this letter and just wanted to make me aware of it. Also got a report of the status of a patient we flew out, Vandy Life Flight. And also PetSmart had donated, well, they've done this for the last 3 years. They've donated stuffed animals and stuff that we could give to the kids and people like that. But they gave us so many, it filled up 2 ambulances. And there was just no way we could handle all that. So we got permission from them to spread some of that joy out to the labor and delivery at the hospital and some of the nursing homes, and scatter it out a little bit more than what we normally do. And if you'll look through the pages, you'll see the ambulances, I mean stuff from floor to ceiling with all these stuffed ambulances, and there's actually 2 ambulances full. And it's a lot of fun doing that, to be honest with you. And John Riddle and Casey Horn and dispatcher Jessica Jordan received the Walmart Sam's Club Lifesaver Award. And John Riddle and Casey Horn a couple months ago had received it before. If you remember, I was concerned about actually getting a complaint from some people at an MTSU ball game, and these two paramedics were the ones that actually diffused that situation, and we wound up getting a thank you out of it instead of a complaint. But they handled it, and I was, like I said, I just wasn't surprised at the action. These boys, it's exactly what I expect of them, and I'm very proud of them. And you'll see their picture on the next page, and I don't know why Keith got his picture in it, but he managed to sneak in there with it. And that's my report, sir.
Okay, sir. Any questions? Motions to approve the report.
I'll move to approve the report, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made to approve the report. Second. Call the roll.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips, Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Gorley,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes. Thank you. Fire and rescue. Evening, Chief.
We've had a busy last month. We had 6 structure fires, 1 mobile home fire, 2 vehicle fires. We ran 300 EMS calls. We had 51 MVAs. 18 of those were with injuries. 33 were without injuries. We had 2 extrications. And then we also participated in the bomb threat out on Lebanon Highway, where the gentleman pulled up at the Crossway Markets, played the same message that the gentleman in Asheville played, kind of got everybody upset, and SO took it in pursuit, and they called us out there in case it did blow up. And it was, of course, they sent the robot in. It was unfounded. Nothing was in the back of the truck. As Chris mentioned, we did have a fatality. We arrived on the scene. House was about 50% involved. The lady that lived there said my husband's in the front bedroom. 2 of my firefighters made a gallant effort to go into the window and do a quick search, and both of them received minor burns. One of them took ear real bad in his neck. The other one burned his neck. We sent both of them to hospitals, and they're going to be fine. But they made a quick search of that room, and he evidently had moved into a back room, is where we found him. Another call out toward Allenville the other night. We almost lost 3 more people. All 3 of them were sleeping upstairs. The fire cut off the stairwell down to the bottom of the stairs. They couldn't get out that way. Fortunately, on the second story, there was a porch type, like deck, that they could go out on and come down the stairs. We made entry up there and helped get them down. They had a lot of soot and smoke inhalation, but thank goodness that they wasn't hurt bad. And the sad part about this, as much as I've preached about smoke detectors, neither one of those houses had working smoke detectors. So, I can't preach that enough about people having smoke detectors, and we got them free to install. So unfortunately, we had one person succumb to that, and which I think a smoke detector would have been beneficial in both those instances. Year to date, we've had 74 structure fires. 5 mobile home fires, 45 vehicle fires, and we're having a lot of illegal burns too. You'll see outside rubbish is 29, and then down at the bottom unauthorized burning is 35. We've had for the year we ran 3,295 EMS calls. We had 716 motor vehicle accidents. 397 of those were with injuries. 319 were without injuries. For a total call volume of call services for the year, 6,374 calls for 2020. Looking over to the overall county, including the volunteers, fire departments, what they run, we had a total of 162 structure fires. We had 104 brush fires. Illegal burns were 110, and that number keeps going up. I think a lot of that has to do with people not wanting to take their stuff to the convenience center. I know that they don't take construction material anymore, so I think that's a lot of they do with the illegal burns. We had 22 water rescues this year, 49 hazmats, and we had a total of 1,244 MVAs across the county, and we had a total of 43 extrications. And we also had an MVA on Versailles this morning with a fatality. Our total this year for countywide was 7,897 calls. And every time I see that number at the end of the year, every year I keep thinking about 2010 when we started this journey, and the call volume for that year was 1,300 calls. So it's gone up dramatically. The next sheet is showing all the structure fires that did receive damage that we turned into the codes department. There were 9 total structure fires that were homes. And those departments out there to the right list the primary response area that they fell in. Next report is our fire and arson investigation report for the month. If you see down at the bottom, that Lebanon Pike, that was I think the location that they made the connection with the truck they thought was carrying a bomb. Next page is the yearly summary of our fire investigation and what that unit did and what they looked into and the outcome of every one of those fires they investigated. And the next sheet is a list and addresses of places that we had unauthorized and illegal burning. And I have 2 budget amendments, and that right there completes my report. If there's any questions.
Chairman, I've got a question.
Yes, sir. Question, Commissioner P.
Larry, you said you had 160-something structure fires for the volunteers. Is that correct?
That's, let me go back here. The 162, that's countywide.
Okay. Are those 162 included in the totals of structure fires that your organization accounted for?
Well, basically, what I pull this report, what I pull these reports from is the sheets they all the volunteer fire departments turn in to me every month, and how they document those, and then I pull ours off the ESO of how our guys log it into the our ESO reports. So
well, my question is, are we double counting?
I think there's a possibility. I think that
if they're listed 162 fire calls for structures, are you saying that you didn't have any personnel at any of those 162 fires?
Well, you got to understand, when you say structure fire, you're talking about garages, you're talking about outbuildings, you're talking about tool sheds, anything that's a type of a structure. So when you say structure fire, that's all those are included in that number. So you may have a volunteer fire department may have a tool shed or an outside structure building that catches on fire, and most of those times they'll cancel us before we get there.
Well, that still doesn't answer my question. My question is, are we double counting there? Did you have any of those fires, any of those 162 fires that the volunteers have listed as part of your response?
I think that's probably a possibility, yes, sir. But what I do is I take their reports, and what they give me is what I document on this sheet right here, and then I pull ours off the total ESO reports, how we document those.
Well, if we're looking at total cost for the year combined, if you're double counting them, I think you need to adjust your numbers.
Pardon me, sir, would you repeat that, please, sir?
I said, if the totals you gave us a while ago was the volunteer numbers plus your numbers, and it was 7,000 something, and you made the comment that was up from 1,300 the first year in 2010. If you're double counting these structure fires or other fires where both agencies respond, I think that you only need to document it as one. You know, you can say both agencies responded, but we don't need to inflate the numbers when they're not. Well, they don't need to be inflated, is what I'm saying. We need a correct number if you're going to report them correctly.
Well, if you see on our sheet, what we documented as structure fire was 74, that's what's on that second page right there. And then the structure fires that for Allenville, Kittrell, Las Casas, Christiana, and Eagleville is what they send me of what they've responded to on their structure fires. So I take them at their word, what they report, plus their water. But like I say, there's no way I can determine whether they're being counted twice. I assume that some of them probably are so.
Well, I don't know how you could not. If you got the same address, you respond and they respond, I mean, it's public record, and most of these are recorded through our 911 system, so it'd be easy enough to check.
Well, what I do when they turn those, when the volunteers turn their reports in, I go through them. Some of them have, like, if they run mutual aid to another department still listed mutual aid, they'll list it as a structure fire. I correct those before I put them in this report.
All I'm saying is I want to make sure these reports are correct.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Gammon?
I think statistically, because I mean, that's something I did for many, many years. What you look at, you could have a call where you have 6 cars show up. That's 6 cars that uses gas and manpower and everything to that one call. What you've got here with the chief, and I'm not trying to second guess you here, Commissioner, but if you have his units go out on that call, that's still a call. It may be that one structure, but you still got all these other units going there, and that's gas use, that's time use and everything. So structurally, that needs to be counted, you know, when you look at dollars and stuff, because that is a cost. And that's just the way I see it in my head. That's how I've always looked at these calls. You know, especially if you have a car coming out of another zone, back up another car, that's the same thing happens with fire trucks all the time. So that's still a call for each one of those trucks.
And I'm not questioning that, Commissioner Gammon, and I agree with you. What my point is, if we had one structure fire and we had 3 agencies respond, we didn't have 3 structure fires, we had one structure fire. And the total number of structures need to be reported correctly. You know, the number of responses, that's different.
I agree. It could be counted as an assist, and that's what a lot of times you do statistically, but it still shows you did go on that call, and it may be whatever jurisdiction had the original call would count it. I agree. But it should be an assist in those where it shows the number of units that went to those things. I agree.
Any other discussion? We have an approval of the report. Motion? Motion made. Commissioner Gammon, to have a second?
Second.
Second. Commissioner Sereno, call the roll.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Mr. Sereno?
Yes.
Mr. Rather?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. P?
Yes.
Mr. Gammon?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. I believe you have an amendment.
Yeah, I have 2 of them. I'm requesting to move $4,380 out of 7-Eleven furniture and fixtures, and $4,000 out of travel into vehicle maintenance and repairs, for a total of $8,380. And then I want to move $1,220 out of disposal fees back into 499, because we spent $220 out of 499 to buy a dumpster to put at our Station 51, and solid waste comes by and picks that up and empties it for free. So we're saving the cost of the disposal fees at all of our stations now. And then the second amendment is I've requested the mayor, we've spent over $20,460 covering our personnel who were sick with COVID. We've had as many as 6 people off shifts that we try to cover and keep our trucks running fully staffed. And so I requested the mayor, he approved me to get $20,460 out of unassigned fund balance, and I'm going to put $10,230 into part-time personnel, and then $8,000 into overtime, and then, of course, that has to include the Social Security, pensions, and the employer Medicare.
Larry, will that be something that we can apply towards some of these COVID grants
Yes,
that
sir,
the federal and state government have?
Yes, sir. Thank you. I turned that in to EMA, Carrie Clark. She's in the process. We've turned in those documents and who worked for who. We're giving that to FEMA, and hopefully we'll be reimbursed, but I can't guarantee at that time, but we are applying for reimbursement. Hopefully that will go back in there and replace those funds. But we are requesting that reimbursement.
Well, that being the case, I'll make a motion to approve the request.
Okay, Let's do these as separate since one will be handled somewhat differently. Let's take the one dealing with the additional funds for part-time and overtime. Let's do that as a separate motion. So Commissioner P., is that the one you're approving right now?
Yes.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Rather, call the roll.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner P.,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Sherino,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes. Now, you've heard the other request dealing with the repair of the vehicle and the dumpster. Do I have a motion on that one?
To approve.
Commissioner Rather moves to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Commissioner Sereno, call the roll.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Sherino,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner P.,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips, Chairman Reed.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anything on the radio system or?
I'm here.
Just have a quick question. You're not experiencing any turnover problems the way the ambulance service is?
Yes, sir. I've lost. I'm down 4 right now. I have 2 left for. I've actually had 3 or 4 leave for more money, but I'm in the process of hiring.
The reason they left
was for more money.
To the same counties or cities that.
I don't know. We lost 2 that's going to Memphis, but we can't compete with them. I mean, they're going there. I think our starting pay of firefighter is probably starting at 36 to 37. They're going down there for 52.
So you're experiencing turnover, but it's not necessarily the same turnover that the ambulance service was experiencing to Nashville, Davidson County, and to Williamson County?
Not now. Not this moment, no, sir.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay. I believe there was something on the radio system from your report, wasn't there, Director?
Peter's on.
Is he on the?
He's called.
I'm here.
Okay. Peter?
Yes, sir. Good evening. So we're continuing to move forward at a fast pace. The remaining microwave hop at the sheriff's office and the Smyrna Tower has been completed, so we now have a loop around the entire radio system. Comcast has wrapped up that fiber connection between the EMS and SO so that we can get their dispatch tied into the radio system. We continue to install mobile radios in SO cars and ambulance. The SO dispatch was wrapped up the 11th of January. We've got some additional work remaining to take care of. EMS will be rotated out in the coming 2 weeks so we can get their dispatch center turned over. The sheriff's office is presently communicating over the new trunk system in dispatch. Since all the principal portables and the crisis team portables in the school system have been deployed, and we're looking at starting the base stations within the school offices in the coming weeks. And we had installed a BDA, an in-building repeater in the Judicial Center 2 years ago, and with anticipation of moving trunking, that has been activated as giving trunk users on the state, the metro system, as well as our system, coverage inside throughout the entire building. All 5 sites are now up from the county, which, including the city right now, makes 9 sites. We're looking at coverage so far right now on mobiles, making it all the way to Tracy City, and we're seeing portable coverage reaching into Shelbyville, for example. We've been able to communicate in places like we haven't before, like we had an incident the other day in the Hippie Hill community where we had communications throughout the entire incident. So we're continuing to move along. It's busy every day, wide open, and it looks like we're probably going to be another month or two wrapping up the SO vehicles, but we're continuing to move at a fast pace. And that's all I have.
Anybody got any questions for Peter? If not, thank you, sir. All right, other business. There's no other business. Meeting's adjourned.